Hello, robots in disguise. My name is TV Sky, and if I were to tell you that one of the shapes on screen right now has the name Kiki, and the other shape has the name Bouba, which shape would you associate with which name? Well, if you're like most people, you will almost immediately have associated the Kiki word with the sharp pointed star-like shape on the right, and the Bouba word with the soft liquid-like shape on the left. This is something that's called the Kiki-Bouba effect, and it is not, as far as I'm aware, entirely universal across the entire human species, but it is close enough to being universal that it is actually being studied in neuroscience and linguistics as a way into understanding how the human brain processes language, because across the globe, in all cultures, from all kinds of language tribes, from all kinds of cultures, people will associate Kiki with the sharp shape and Bouba with the soft shape. Nobody knows exactly why this happens. There's a lot of theories out there, something to do with how you have to shape your mouth in order to say the noises might create some kind of association, or that the Kiki shape seems a little bit more sharp and pointy and dangerous, and maybe Kiki sounds more like a warning noise that a parent might make to a child, like ch or that kind of thing. But again, there's really no solid scientific consensus on why it happens. So this is a character design and writing and creativity channel, so why am I bringing up a quirk of linguistics and neuroscience? Well, because this has some implications for character design as well. Now, I'm not a neuroscientist, so I'm not going to claim that any of the stuff I'm about to say here results from some kind of lizard brain anomaly in the human genome or whatever the case may be, but it certainly seems to be true across tendencies in character design that if you want a character to appear more sharp, more aggressive, more dangerous, more unpleasant, more dangerous to touch, which of these types of shapes would you generally associate those qualities with? Again, that's the Kiki. And if you want someone to be pleasant, kind, sort of generous, soft, just, pleasant to be around, well, the Bouba shape might be more of your go-to. Like, which of these two shapes, if it was a 3D physical object, would you be more inclined to slam your hand down onto, essentially? So, when it comes to character design, especially very simple character designs, like the sort that you might use in children's media, a very effective shorthand for telling the audience who's the good guy and who's the bad guy is to employ Kiki and Bouba shapes in the character design. This is part of the reason why, for instance, in Warcraft, the original games, the orcs tend to put spikes on damn near everything, while the humans tend to be associated with much more like rounded breastplates and much more round and soft and pleasant shapes. It's the kind of thing you would see in a fantasy storybook. So, this is Megatron from the video game War for Cybertron, which I believe was put out by Platinum Games some years ago. And if you were to pick the Kiki or the Bouba, which one would you say that Megatron is most closely associated with is a leading question, because obviously he's associated with the Kiki shape. It's obvious from every part of his character design that sharp, pointed, edgy shapes are the basis of a lot of his character design. He looks dangerous, he looks unpleasant, and part of the reason why is because his shape language is heavily informed by this tendency towards spikes and very edgy shapes. And this is not science necessarily. A lot of people have like an instinctual understanding of how to do this when it comes to character design. If you look at children's drawings, they too will tend to design the bad guys, the villains, more around Kiki shapes than Bouba ones. Here's Optimus Prime, also from the War for Cybertron. Take a look at his design in contrast with Megatron and tell me, would Optimus Prime be most associated with a Bouba shape or a Kiki shape? Now, he is a robot, which means that he's by necessity going to have a lot of big, buxy, bulky shapes on him. But look what they've done with them. Look how his upper body in particular, he's lots of boxes going on, but they all bulgy and curvy everywhere. And not soft curves necessarily, but curves made up of multiple edges that just transform him into this much more soft-looking, much more pleasant, much more approachable, and indeed much more heroic-looking creature than the unpleasant, unapproachable, spiky Megatron over here. This also ties in neatly, because the character designers at Platinum are very good at their jobs, to associating Optimus more heavily with the general superhero archetype, which also will tend to have a very straight lower body and a very bulgy, muscular upper body. So it serves two purposes there, because they're good at their jobs. But take a look even at his legs, even at these big, boxy legs that are made of nothing but harsh geometric shapes, how much effort the artists have put into trying to round off as many of the shapes as possible. Around the leg plates here on his knees, around, you know, even these little squares on the front of his shins. There's so much effort going into just filing some of the edges off, just rounding it off just a little bit so that it doesn't appear too Kiki, so that it doesn't appear too sharp, too unpleasant, too unapproachable. So in general terms, if you want to design characters that are easy to distinguish from one another, that are easy to identify as belonging to two different factions, using different shape languages based on different basic shapes is a very effective way to do that. You can design an entire faction around being shaped like triangular things, and another one like squares, and another one like, you know, trapezoids or whatever. But you can also do it by designing one faction around being very sharp, very pointed, very edgy and unpleasant, making them the villains, and making the good guys more rounded, soft, and Bouba-like. As indeed Platinum did when they designed the character designs for Optimus Prime and Megatron in War for Cybertron. This is Megatron from the Michael Bay movies. Oh, God, bad taste in my mouth. From the Michael Bay movies, which are one of the most successful movie franchises of all One of the most successful one of the most successful movie franchises of all time. Oh God, I feel sick. And among the many bad character design decisions that the Michael Bay movies made about their Transformers, when you take the first look at Megatron, you might say, aha, I see what they're doing there. In order to make Megatron appear like the evil, villainous bad guy of the piece, they have associated him almost entirely with Kiki shapes, almost entirely with sharp, pointed, unpleasant, jagged shapes. Aha, they're applying the same basic character design principles, and therefore, no doubt, when we take a look at Optimus Prime, we're gonna see nothing but Bouba shapes. Right? Yeah, maybe not so much. Okay, so the Autobots in the Michael Bay Transformers movies, generally speaking, tend towards a somewhat softer, more rounded character design set than the Decepticons from the same films, which look, let's be honest, all of them just look like Megatron with different parts welded onto him. Like, this literally, the character design in those movies are so abjectly terrible, I could rant for hours about just how bad they are. But like, all of the Decepticons just look like this fucking guy with different bits just kind of attached with crazy glue. And all of the Autobots just look like pretty much the same thing, except they've got some paint slathered on them so that they're more colorful and can sell more toys. Ah, good lord. Anyway, Optimus Prime in the Michael Bay movies is slightly more rounded, slightly more well composed than Megatron, who just looks like an angry scrap heap with mental issues. Optimus looks a bit more composed, a bit more well designed, but nonetheless, almost all of his character design is still dominated by Kiki shapes. It's still a lot of harsh edges, a lot of unpleasant metal bits just sticking out everywhere, a lot of spikes, a lot of things you could cut yourself on and get tetanus. And that is part of the reason why the character designs in the Transformers movies are so bloody awful, is that there really isn't, from a visual standpoint, a strong visual distinction between Autobots and Decepticons, except that the Autobots have more colors. They are all just giant piles of scrap metal, giant messes that just look unpleasant and unfriendly. But not particularly inhuman. That's the other trouble, is that they don't, like, maybe the point was to make them look more alien, but that also kind of fails because they still recognizably look like humanoid robots. So, yeah, there's a lot wrong with the character designs in the Transformers movies. This is Bumblebee from the Transformers movies, and he also isn't exactly a great hero character design. He's certainly a bit softer in a lot of places than even Optimus Prime tends to be, but still his character design is largely dominated by Kiki shapes, by very sharp, very unpleasant, very unapproachable, pointy shapes that just make him come across as more aggressive, more dangerous than he's really supposed to be within the narrative of the films. In the narrative of the films, Bumblebee is by far the friendliest Transformer. He's the one who keeps making friends with the humans. And he's the one who's supposed to be the most friendly, the most relatable, the most funny of all the Transformers, and his character design just does not carry it off. Now, there is something of a point to making the Autobots in the Michael Bay movies look like this, is that in the Michael Bay movies, the Autobots are tremendously aggressive. Like, they fight and they kill and they murder and they're violent and they're just like this. Again, there's not a lot of distinction between Autobots and Decepticons in the Transformers movies, except that the Transformers movies insist that the Autobots are the good guys because of reasons. And this, again, is reflected in the character designs. It makes sense to make them look more Kiki, like when you want them to be more aggressive, more warlike in your film, but good lord, is it bad. So imagine my surprise today when I see the release of the trailer for a spin-off Transformers movies, of all things. A spin-off of the worst movie franchise of all time, perhaps. And I realize, okay, it's a Bumblebee spin-off? Okay, is he like the best character for that? So I watch the trailer, and I see this. Now, with everything we've talked about before, you can already see miles in advance where I'm going with this. Look at how they redefined Bumblebee. Look at what the character designers did with this. How they changed it. One of the major things about this particular scene in the trailer is that it's the first confrontation between Bumblebee and the human who's about to reactivate him. With great timing, I've managed to switch over right as the trailer gets to that point. It's their first confrontation with one another. It's their first time realizing that the other person exists. Bumblebee has been asleep for a very long time, insofar as I can make out. He's waking up for the very first time, being confronted with this human. Take a look at how that scene plays out, and take a look at how his character design plays into that. Take a look at what happens now. He's scared. He's afraid. He's vulnerable. And part of the fiction here is that he has been separated from the other Autobots. He has woken up in this strange alien world full of alien creatures that he doesn't understand. And now he's trapped in a building with one of them, and he's frightened. He's vulnerable. And he needs help. And a whole hell of a lot of that is communicated in this character design. Imagine if that same scene had played out, and Bumblebee had looked like this. Imagine how much that would have changed the dynamics. Imagine how much more threatening, how much more dangerous, how much more unsympathetic he would seem. Like, if you don't have the context of knowing already in your head that Bumblebee is one of the good guys, and you see a scene where he towers over a human woman who's far below him, looking like this, would he look vulnerable? Would he look approachable? Would he look scared? Would he look like he's the one in this situation who might be most in need of help? I really, truly, genuinely don't think so. Now, there's other stuff in the Bumblebee trailer as well that makes me much more hopeful for that movie than for, good lord, literally any other Transformers movie since the 1986 one. But one of the things that struck me is how profoundly the character designers for this film have keyed in on a very basic character design principle. Even Bumblebee's face. Look at his face. Look at all these soft, rounded, pleasant shapes. His eyelids, the shape of his top of his helmet there, the mouthpiece, the thing that sits in front of his face, all of it round, soft, nice. Partly because in the other Transformers movies, Bumblebee, it's a transformation of a muscle car. I think it's like a Camaro or something that has a shape language that more easily transitions into aggression. Like, muscle cars are heavily associated with masculinity and aggression anyway in the culture, whereas in this film, Bumblebee is actually, as he is indeed in the original Transformers cartoons, a Volkswagen Beetle. One of the most approachable, friendly, iconic family cars ever to come out of Europe, which has a profoundly Bouba shape language, which translates into his character design in the film, and gives us a moment like this. Imagine a moment like this soft, tender moment of trust between two members of different species playing out, with a character whose face looks like that. Nothing but spikes, nothing but unpleasantness, nothing but stuff like, if you touch that, you're gonna cut yourself and you're gonna get tetanus, and you're gonna have to get a shot or you're gonna die. from a character design perspective, I could not honestly be more impressed with what the people behind the new Bumblebee movie have managed to do with a character who was so profoundly unsuited for the role of Iron Giant in this movie. But damn it if they didn't pull it off. And honestly, depending on the reviews, even if they're not that great, I'm gonna go watch this film. And I'm gonna go watch it almost entirely on the strength of the character design of Bumblebee. Also because that's Starscream, and Starscream looks fucking awesome. He looks so terrible in the other movies. Look at how he looks here. He looks badass as hell. I want to see those two guys fight, because again, look at how Starscream is designed in these movies. He's much closer to the kind of shape language that you would expect from the old Transformers movies, but here it's being employed with a point. He's also got some color on him finally, which helps a lot, but it's also being employed with a visual point. It's to distinguish him. It's to make him alien from Bumblebee. It's to make it clear that in the friend-enemy distinction between Bumblebee and this guy is the enemy. This is the bad guy, which you can tell because everything about him is made up of much sharper, much more unpleasant shapes that marks him out as dangerous, that marks him out as Kiki to Bumblebee's Bouba. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. If you have enjoyed this video, you should feel very free to head on over to Patreon and, you know, kick $1 my way if you were so inclined. You get access to some perks for that, including access to the Discord that we have here on the channel, where we hang out and we talk, and it's generally just very good and pleasant time. As well as you can earn credits towards ordering art commissions from me, or indeed, somewhere down the line, you'll be able to actually commission videos from me on topics that you choose. If you don't want to do any of that, that is, of course, 110% completely fine. I'm just happy that you watched the video this far. You can click the subscribe button if you want to, and there are also, down below the video, a like and a dislike button. Now, one of them is a friendly robot buddy who will protect you with his life and be kind to you all your life and take you on cool robot adventures. And the other one is an evil robot in disguise who's gonna untransform, grab you by the neck, and kill you. So, you figure out which one is safe to click, and I will see you in the next video.